When it comes to the slice of life subgenre, few have mastered it to the extent that Hirokazu Kore-eda has, or can match the pace or consistency with which he produces such masterfully crafted stories with unmatchable level of authenticity. There is an honesty about the characters, acting, and dialogue in his work. And when all of that takes place in locations that actually feel lived through, the outcome doesn't come off as a film, but more so as speaking into someone's life. And much of that can be credited to him working on various television documentaries early on in his career. All that knowledge helped him to develop his own style, which he has refined over the years, even basing some of the stories or events from his own life. This way, he managed to capture emotions that can't be easily expressed and presented those narratives in a realistic fashion. Although his approach towards direction hasn't changed as much, it has been tweaked over the years, he has been prioritizing the concept and value of family for quite some time. Not just in the traditional sense, but numerous other variants which aren't easily accepted or breach the societal norms, even questioning the ones which are considered to be the standard. Mostly focusing on individuals who are in the lower income strata and how various challenges or drawbacks in life affect their existence, often out of their control or too big to be completely overhauled by them. The best they can do is endure the journey. It isn't particularly unpleasant, but it rarely features a joyous conclusion. There is always a bittersweet quality to them with a hint of hopeful future. And that air of vagueness and almost abrupt endings is what makes them such a remarkable experience. How much can be said in 24 hours? How much can be sown in a day? How much can be achieved in that short period of time is the testament of still walking's greatness. Our past shapes our present identity and influences our future choices. Positive or negative, it isn't something that can be altered or escaped. Aside from nostalgia-inducing memories, it plants regrets in our lives that haunts us till we cease to exist. And that's what is explored in here through a family get-together. A reunion to commemorate the early and accidental death of a person. Some members are stuck in the past, lost in all those good times from bygone days, by repeating old stories, and in that process choosing to live in that frame of mind. A family which has been distant for quite some time, close in proximity, yet so apart while they prioritized their own lives. There is the daughter who wants to move in with her parents in order to assist them. However, that idea isn't presented in that fashion, as they don't want to live together, but only inhabit beside them. There is a lack of mutual interest behind that decision, or it isn't done for the same or right reasons. Even though the parents would appreciate such support, they are aware that the motive behind it isn't what it appears to be. However, there was never a malicious intent behind their daughter's actions. It is simply in the human nature to look after their own needs and desires before worrying about others, no matter what the connection might be. Almost everyone has their own agenda, such as her father, who chooses and goes out of his way to isolate himself from such a lively surrounding with a petty rationale behind it. Much like millions of parents who try to vicariously live out their dreams through their children or force them to continue that path in the hopes of reaching levels that they couldn't in their lifetime. He is bitter that none of his children managed to achieve or extend that lineage. The oldest son was supposed to be his successor, but he met his early demise, and his younger brother left the family, leaving him empty-handed. And this alone fills him with immense disappointment and unnecessary levels of resentment. He simply cannot accept the actuality of his progeny following their own aspirations and not what he expected or desired from them, even demeaning their chosen career as it isn't considered to be as vital for human existence as his, belittling the ones who decide to pursue or end up with such professions, like the struggling boy whom his son saved all those years ago. And since the youngest son was the worst recipient of his conduct, it only makes sense that he opposes his father's opinions, defending the individuals whose life never turned out how they envisioned it. They aren't any different than us in their effort to better themselves to their best capabilities, and don't deserve to be compared to the accomplishments of others. He used to look up to him and wanted to become a doctor, maybe to please him. But not anymore, since that never worked out in his favor. So no wonder his father connects with his stepson, hoping that he would become the next candidate for his wish, no matter if he stays alive to witness it or not. However, it isn't only his father who subjects him to such harsh treatment. His late brother is always talked in a far fonder way by them, and they don't completely accept his marriage with a widow or easily assimilate their son in the family, even suggesting him to have a child with her to strengthen or solidify their relationship. Biological and blood connection over emotional and physical presence. And this narrative is mainly driven by his wise and workaholic mother, who has a different perspective than all the other women in the family. A housewife amidst working woman. So of course she struggles to resonate with the challenges that comes with being a single mother, balancing work and raising a child. However, she has her own fair share of problems to worry about, mainly the lack of communication with her husband, not discussing about their troubles to each other, but mostly offloading to her youngest son or spewing them out in front of others, revealing numerous layers of disdain and unresolved disagreements they have harbored throughout their time together. Although majority of the family members still haven't processed the death in a healthy manner, she was not only hit the worst from it, but struggles to deal with it even after a decade of that unfortunate incident, trying to do whatever that seemed justifiable from her viewpoint to grieve and cope with that reality of hers, done in order to subdue the feeling of despair and loneliness that comes with it. In such a tormented mental state, everything seems fair. With that being said, rarely there has been a film with such an in-depth and captivating examination of a family, loaded with little intricacies that not only makes them relatable, but unbelievably genuine. There is a separation in their togetherness, let it be generational or the flow, overlapping and quick change of topics in their conversations and subtle digs at each other. It is far from ideal, but that's how it tends to be. It cannot be joyous at all moments, and neither can they be likable for its entirety. But it's the pain and sadness behind them is what makes them hauntingly real. And brief scenes of kinship unveils the underlying beauty between them, as it concludes with a stark reminder that it is the unavoidable differences in us that transforms unfulfilled promises into lifelong regrets. Scenarios that weren't conceived when they were possible, yet they do what is necessary to remember them, continuing their sayings so their legacy can be passed on to the future generations. Because in life, you don't always love the ones who are the closest to you, but that doesn't mean you stop caring about them. What defines a family? Who can be considered one's parents? Is it the molecules that can be found in our blood solely possesses the ability to unify people, or is it their actions that counts? This is the core essence of like father, like son. Although, at first, it might come off as a story about fatherhood or parenthood, it is ultimately an examination of blood relations, and how the parents, or more so their children, navigate the strength of that bond when its legitimacy is questioned. Explored via two families from completely different backgrounds crossing each other's path after a mishap brings them together. There is a stark difference between both households' financial capabilities. A lower middle class family living in a suburban area and an upper middle class family living in a city. One in a congested house with multiple kids, while the other in a soulless apartment. The former still has ties with its traditions, and the latter has sacrificed it for modern conveniences. One of them is fairly laid back in nature and isn't competitive with his job, and even tries his best to involve the kids in his daily life, whereas the other is obsessed with his work to such an extent that he neglects everyone or prioritizes it over them. Hence, he's so judgmental about the other man's profession and bases his entire identity over it and the limits of his expenditure. His humble or economical ways isn't appreciated and is continuously mocked by him. However, the same modest living that he looks down upon is what makes them so special. There is a warm and hospitable feel to their home. It is far more lively and authentic in nature. Money can never buy that. But that isn't to say that they are perfect by any means. They have their own difficulties and differences. But unlike the other couple, they don't hide it that well. Their quarrels are always in the forefront for everyone to witness. Far from ideal, but at least it is conveyed openly and has the possibility to be sorted out. It doesn't try to appear flawless in the eyes of their children, who will either find about it or are already aware of it, no matter how many doors or walls one places in between them to dampen it. Whatever their situation may be, they do their best to keep the children happy, not letting that compromise the love they have for them. Materialistic goods can only go so far and convey so little. It is the time spent together and the development of a bond or connection from those moments is what remains with us till our final days. The value of that currency cannot be evaluated or simulated. And the struggles of it is particularly noticeable in the father with his strict and disciplinary traits. An absent parent who was raised by a man who instilled those beliefs in him and distorted the meaning of family just so he can be successful in life. So that is exactly how he tries to raise his child, judging him on the basis of his technical abilities and carves a lifelong path for him that he considers to be the best for him. Almost every party that is involved in this process of switching and integrating the boys into the biological parent's life has a tough time dealing with it. Mainly the adults who struggle with all the formalities and steps, while the kids have an easier time assimilating with each other. And at least the mother on both sides managed to form an emotional attachment between themselves, seeing that they would be blamed and their maternal instincts would be questioned. Albeit, one has to suffer from the consequences all alone, as her husband wasn't close with her right from the beginning. A reality she has long accepted. But interestingly, that interchange of babies doesn't go well with him. Switching his son, whose mannerisms he sculpted in such a meticulous manner, with someone who does not possess them, no matter how insubstantial they might be, leaves him with a scenario that he isn't adept to deal with. Desperately using authority rather than being sensible or affectionate to teach or shape him like his previous child. Hoping to get instant results and not being aware of the time that the entire process requires to bear any fruitful result. Even attempting to go for dual custody, not because he has the capacity to raise 2 children, but simply because he can afford it. Trying to substitute parenting with wealth or simply relegate all the duties to his already overburdened wife. With that being said, the film doesn't paint him or his family as the villain. After all, he has the most amount of screen time in here. It is his troublesome journey we follow as he goes from a heartless individual who thinks this will completely destroy his family to a person who is trying his best to make amends and be more understanding even if he isn't competent in such aspects. It is never easy, and how can it be? There aren't any manuals or lessons for these scenarios in life. Patience and tenderness are what can ease the pain and make the proceedings more bearable. Not unreal amount of character development to leave us with a cheerful finale, but small steps that has the possibility for a hopeful future. Shoplifters is the culmination of almost every celebrated motif of the director's work, such as the flow of seasons affecting the plot and characters, or how we only receive different perspectives of a story and not a flashback, as the former gives us a better representation of how those events actually pan out in real life. There is no confirmation, just how they remember it. And it also features one of my favorite inaugural scenes that establishes so much with minimal dialogue. and it continues that remarkable storytelling with natural revelation of information rather than dumping everything for the sake of disclosing it just for the viewer. And it cleverly achieves character growth not by mentioning their whereabouts, but showcasing them in their workplace or day-to-day activities. Thematically, it not only boasts one of the better dissection of what is the value or meaning of family, but depicts them in a space that strays away from the usual glamour and radiance of urban life in Japan, prioritizing humanity above all. Beginning with a family enshrouded in secrets, introducing a young girl into their lives. They had their doubts, but after witnessing the abusive environment she was growing up in, they decide to let her live with them, no matter how congested it will be or increase the strain on their already tight financial situation. They will always be better than her mother, who laments her birth and uses the same abusive techniques that she is subjected to, trying to entice her with commodities rather than apologizing for her abhorrent conduct or learning from her mistakes to grow as a person. A victim of the cycle of abuse, leading to the creation of more disheartening aftermaths. Giving a false pretense that she cares or worries about her when she didn't even file a missing report of her. No wonder the girl quickly integrates herself into the family and begins to care about them. And they reciprocate that by providing her a new disguise to keep her identity concealed for the time being, fostering her with more tender notions about family and love in general. Brute force isn't how they are expressed or ever will be. Something that is quite vital in here, as some of them were either a victim of similar treatment or harmed themselves as a result of their dispassionate parental relationships. So unlike those connections, everyone in here has chosen to be with each other and consider them as a family. From the grandmother choosing the couple to the young girl deciding to be with them rather than returning to her old place. However, it isn't a smooth process. The boy struggles and takes time to accept her as his sister or involve her in their shoplifting escapades. Similarly, he isn't willing to call the man his father, who can't do a lot about it even if he deeply desires to be considered his parent. And the complexity of this relation is perfectly summarized with this scene. Giving us more insight on the tough and out of the ordinary lifestyle the boy leads. Their living situation gradually worsens as the man gets injured while working and doesn't receive any compensation for his absence, and the woman, while already having shorter shifts, is fired, or more so, forced to quit her job, leaving them to survive off the grandmother's pension and the money she collects from the family who grossly neglected her in that old age. She is aware that the household depends on her and almost leeches off her, but not with any ill intent. Even if it appears that they're only staying together because of her money, they don't ever take it for granted. They persevere even under those adverse conditions until the death of the grandmother and the boy being caught by the authorities for shoplifting. The former hits us with the unfortunate reality of them not being able to contact the paramedics or even afford a proper funeral for her, forced to bury her under their house and live above that secret of theirs. However, the latter incident leads to the sudden dissolvement of the family, who are quickly caught while fleeing the situation. This bombards them with questions regarding all of them inhabiting under a single roof and its dark history, disputing its validity and tainting the once beautiful relations that they had with each other, bringing forth the concept of family and how they never had it. Childbirth might be deemed as a necessary step, but that doesn't equate to one becoming a parent. All these biological interdependence are usually discharged by parents who are absent or abusive in nature. The couple get accused of kidnapping the children out of sheer jealousy as they couldn't have one of their own. But no matter how many barriers are fabricated between them, it can't weaken the link they have established out of their love. They might never be their progenitors, but they will always remain their true guardians. Label or not, deep down they know What's between them is far more sacred than the world around them will ever be able to comprehend or accept.